Good afternoon and welcome to the PTSD Resources for Veterans webinar. We apologize for the late start, but I am thrilled that we have 4 panel members here with us. And I'm going to have them each introduce themselves and then talk a bit about what they do to help veterans in the community who have PTSD. David Saldano was not able to join us today, and Joy is filled in for him. So Joy, can you introduce yourself, just your title and the name of your organization and your full name as well?
Sure, glad to be here and glad to be pitching in for Dave, who was not able to make it. I'm Joy Germanis. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and I'm here representing Naples Vet Center.
Thank you, Joy. And next, I'd like to have Monique introduce herself.
Hi, I am Monique Hashimoto. I work for Home Base Southwest Florida, a Red Sox Foundation Massachusetts General Hospital program, and I am the Operations and Special Projects Manager.
Thank you. And Leslie? Leslie, you're on mute.
Hi, I'm Leslie Weidenhammer. I'm a lieutenant with the Collier County Sheriff's Office Mental Health Bureau.
Thanks, Leslie. And by the way, I was on a meeting on Zoom last week and somebody said that the quote of the year is "you're on mute," and I have found that to be true. Chris, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Chris Snow, also a licensed clinical social worker. I work for the VA in Cape Coral, and I am the suicide prevention coordinator there.
Great to have you. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
And then what I'd like you each to do is spend about 5 to 10 minutes speaking about what you do to help veterans who suffer from PTSD. Joy, let's start with you and hear about what the Naples Vet Center does.
Sure, glad to share, Mark. Thanks for this opportunity. So we are the Naples Vet Center. We're one of 300 vet centers across the country that were created in the late 70s, initially to serve Vietnam veterans who did not feel like they had a place to go and share about readjustment issues and traumas related to their combat experience. So to address that, the vet centers were created and have since expanded to now cover all combat era veterans, as well as veterans who have experienced military sexual trauma. So we are open to working with those veterans and their families. We serve combat veterans and veterans who have experienced military sexual trauma by offering different types of supportive services, primarily individual counseling, group counseling, family counseling, couples counseling, marital counseling, and also some supportive services where Dave, who is not here today, but he's our outreach person, he's integral in connecting our veterans and family members to other resources in the community to really offer a comprehensive supportive program for veterans and family members that are struggling with PTSD. The way that our services work is if someone feels like they're experiencing readjustment issues, or issues related to PTSD or military sexual trauma, MST, then they would contact our office and get in touch with one of us, and then we would do intake, which is basically a way to get to know them better and have a better understanding of what the issues are and bring them into our system, and then we would talk about individualized services. So depending on what their needs and preferences are, and what we feel is clinically indicated for that person, we'll come up with a treatment plan together to best meet their needs. So the groups that we offer traditional PTSD groups. We have several of those that meet weekly. They're broken up by combat eras. So majority of ours are Vietnam veteran PTSD groups. We also have what we call a Sandbox PTSD group, which is our Gulf War veterans from early 90s on to current day conflict, and that meets once a week as well. We also offer additional supportive groups such as spouses groups to help support the spouses that are living with someone with PTSD or with readjustment issues. And we do other groups to help support the families and veterans in more innovative ways. So this week, as a matter of fact, I've just started a virtual creative arts group that was very well received. We all seem to enjoy that. I offer a mindfulness meditation group. We're working on a parenting group now because we're starting to see some younger veterans with some parenting issues and challenges. So we wanted to offer specific services to meet that need. We do reading groups. In the past, before COVID, we were doing walking groups, gardening groups. So we really have the flexibility to meet the veterans and their family members where they are and come up with some creative and innovative approaches to support them through this recovery journey. Can't hear you, Mark.
There you go.
That's okay.
There was actually a question while you were speaking, and I know we normally wait until the end, but is there a way people can get information about the various types of groups that you have and when you have them? Is there a calendar or something online that somebody can go to?
The calendar changes depending on some of the groups are time limited, but absolutely anybody can call and I'll be glad to give, or any of the staff here can give more specific information about the group. So sure.
Right. And by the way, Dave, for those who know Dave Saldano, he's okay. He just had an issue that came up, so I don't want anybody worrying about him. But Joy, I really appreciate you being here.
My pleasure.
Inform us about the services you provide. Monique, can you tell us a bit about Home Base and how Home Base has programs that help those with PTSD, those veterans with PTSD in the community?
Yeah. Thank you guys again for having me here. Just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a background about Home Base. We got started basically after the 2007 World Series that the Red Sox won. Every year, the winning team gets to go to Washington, D.C. They go on different tours, and they happened to go to Walter Reed Medical Center while they were there. What was supposed to be a 1-hour tour actually turned into an all-day event. And that's when the new owners realized that they needed to do something to help veterans, active duty service members as well. But with Walter Reed having such a strong hold and understanding of how to heal the physical wounds, the physical injuries, they wanted to figure out a way to help heal the invisible wounds. So the Red Sox Foundation ended up partnering with Massachusetts General Hospital, which is often ranked the #1 psychiatric department in the nation, and created Home Base in 2009. And so our mission is to heal the invisible wounds such as post-traumatic stress, traumatic brain injury, military sexual trauma, and other invisible wounds through what we call our 4 pillars. And those are our clinical care, wellness, education, and research. So with our clinical care, we actually started with our nationwide program, which is our intensive clinical programs, 14 days program, where veterans are treated to holistic and evidence-based therapies to help treat and deal with their invisible wounds. And so that program is at no cost to the veterans. We actually send, pre-COVID, we would send a family member, whether it be a parent, a spouse, a sibling, or a close friend, up with them for 4 out of those 14 days to kind of learn tools to help when that veteran comes back home, because it is nationwide. However, just to point out, Florida is one of the largest concentrations where they receive a lot of their participants into our ICP program outside of New England. So we have that. And then recently, in November of 2019, we actually opened our outpatient clinic in partnership with Lee Health. So our services are held at the Lee Behavioral Health Center. And with this program, we actually trained 2 of their clinicians up at Massachusetts General Hospital, brought them back down here, and they treat veterans, family members, active duty, any kind of mental health issues that they may be experiencing. We're able to serve that population. Again, at no cost to them or their family members. The only exception is if they do see med management and they were to write them a prescription. We don't cover the prescription, but we do cover all of the therapies within this program. In our wellness pillar, we have our Warrior Health and Fitness program, and this is what we like to say our least vulnerable entry into treating the invisible wounds. We've learned that getting veterans back into a normal environment that they're used to opens them up a little bit more. They're around people that may think like them or have been through similar experiences, and realize that they can open up and realize that maybe they do need some sort of mental health. And so with that, now we're able to have them in the Warrior Health and Fitness program, go into outpatient care, or if it is truly bad enough, intensive clinical program as well. So with the Warrior Health and Fitness, it's a 90-day program. Each program is tailored specifically to that veteran. So if they want to get stronger or run a 5K, they haven't worked out in years, our strength and conditioning specialists are able to work with them and help them reach their goals. They also have access to registered dietitians and yoga instructors as well through this program. And then also through our education pillar, we are training clinicians on these latest therapies to treat post-traumatic stress. So not only are we training them just to treat our veterans down here, we are also training them with the hopes that there are others who may be facing post-traumatic stress, giving them that access to those clinicians, because Florida, we tend to rank on the lowest with regards to spending for mental health care. And so by providing these clinical trainings, we're able to treat not only the veterans, but also the community as a whole with PTSD. And those are just a few of the programs that we offer.
Thank you, Monique. And you mentioned Lee County, but you also serve veterans in Collier County.
We do. We serve veterans in Collier County as well. We're working on expanding our outpatient clinical program into Collier as well, just so we know that transportation may be an issue. And so we don't want to exclude anyone from receiving this care. So we are in talks with expanding that care down to Collier County.
Great. And Leslie, can you discuss with us how the Sheriff's Department is involved in helping veterans with PTSD?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. As I mentioned before, I am our supervisor of our mental health bureau at the agency, and I'll try to quickly just give you an overview of some of the things that we do and the programs that we have. Because as you can imagine, most of the time when we are encountering some of our veterans, they are currently in crisis, and now they're intersecting with the criminal justice system, and sometimes that doesn't always end well for that individual. So we recognized, along with our partnerships throughout the county years ago, and really took it forward full steam in 2016, that there are times where we really want to do something different with our veterans and with some of our general population that's out there. So just to let you know, we currently, as of this morning, we have 13 veterans who are incarcerated in our jail. And out of those 13, 8 of those are on felony charges and 5 are on misdemeanor charges. And those charges range all the way up to murder and all the way down to a trespass after warning. So the veterans that we're intersecting out there and seeing, there's a wide array, vast array of what their difficulties are and what's happening to them. And we looked at that, what are we doing for our veterans? And some of the things that we do, as I said, we work with a lot of community resources out there. And one of those things, we work with Del Mullen and Wounded Warriors of Collier County. We really participate with him quite a bit. And this is going to also intersect with some of the training I'll talk about here in a second that we are also doing with our deputies. So what we've done with some of the folks that we've encountered, we have many of our veterans out there that are homeless and they are struggling. So we have worked with Dale, Alpha House, that's now in Collier County. Some of our participants on the line today, they may be familiar with Alpha House, they may not be. You can go to Wounded Warriors of Collier County's website and learn all about that. But one of the beauties that we've seen with that, with our training with the deputies, when they are encountering a veteran that's out there is having difficulties, they know now that we have some resources. We obviously have gaps in our county, which we'll probably talk about later in this presentation today, but we now have some resources. It's not unlimited, that's for sure. But I'll give you an example. We recently had a deputy who encountered a veteran who was out on the street, who was in crisis. The deputy recognized he was in crisis and thought, you know, it's easy for us to take somebody to jail. That's the easy part for us. The hard part is trying to get them connected with resources. So that deputy, to his credit, took that initiative, called us at the Mental Health Bureau and said, hey, I've got this gentleman out here. He's trespassing. He's homeless. He needs help. We really don't want to take him to jail for a trespass after warning. You know, we know there's some other things we can do. So we got a hold of Dale and his group, and thankfully that veteran, one, did not go to jail. It's probably the last place he needs to be. And two, he was placed in somewhere with a roof over his head within a week. So got him off the street. So that's a good success story. And I always like to talk about those. I can talk about all kinds of stuff all day long, but we seem to remember those success stories that are out there when we're dealing with somebody. So we work with Wounded Warriors of Collier County. We also work with Home Base. We work with Dave and his group in various different ways. So I want to go to the training that I spoke about. We train our officers. The sheriff made an initiative that all of our officers that are certified in the jail, out on the street, we've also expanded to train many of our civilian support group that's here at the agency in crisis intervention team training. And that's a 40-hour training based upon a Memphis model. That is the gold standard of training. And what does that do? That training does many things, but one of the main things is help the officers to recognize symptoms, recognize when somebody's in crisis of mental health crisis, substance use crisis, post-traumatic stress, all of that they can recognize that. And then we take it even further and we train them on nonviolent encounter de-escalation strategies. Because probably most people on here realize that when somebody's in crisis or is having a bout with some post-traumatic stress, many times we've got to calm them and get the situation very calm in order to figure out, assess the situation, what we're going to do, what we can help them with, and facilitate some type of positive change for them. So that's called our CAF model. It's calm, assess, facilitate. And we also bring in, we have several officers at the agency who are veterans. We bring in one of our officers who is a veteran, who is retired from the military, and he trains our deputies on some of the unique challenges that our veterans that are out in the community may face. And he provides that training on with our officers during that. We also, the last day of the CIT training, we bring in our resources, and Dave Saldano comes in and talks about some of the resources that are out there for them. The other thing that we do, along with the stuff, is we work very closely with the Veterans Court in Collier County, which I'll talk about a little bit more if I have time here. But one of the things I want to talk about is with our jail reentry, because we do know that we have some of our veterans who are going into the jail. And Monique Nagy with our reentry and her team worked very hard on a resource guide that we provide to our veterans. When they come in, we talk to them about Veterans Court, and we also provide to them before they leave our facility. And there's discussion going on while they're in our facility to try to figure out what resources they need, connect them back if they need ID, if they need a support system, if they need to apply for benefits. We try to connect them with that. And I know that all of you will be provided a link to that resource guide. It's mostly Collier County, but it's very, it's almost exhaustive in what's out there. So you can pull that up and look at that. I did want to mention one other thing. We also at the agency, some of our members that are being hired to come into our agency, we take that very serious. Our agency does have a Veterans Affairs Committee to assist our agency members who may be having difficulties when they return, and just regular difficulties in life. So we have a Veterans Affairs Committee that we work on with our agency members. We also go out into our community and we have veterans recruit fairs that the only folks that are invited to that recruit fair are our veterans and their families to see if there's a position that's open that they may be interested in. We also, when our veterans come in for an interview, if they are a veteran, have served, no matter what amount of time it has been, they are also, if they pass our interview process, they're also provided extra points in that interview process if they pass when they're trying to apply for a position at the agency. And our mental health intervention team, mental health bureau, we are familiar with a lot of our veterans that are out there. Our mental health intervention team is a partnership with David Lawrence Center. We have right now currently a licensed clinical social worker with us and getting ready to get another licensed individual from DLC. And we get called out quite often to go out and talk to our veterans out there on the street who may be in crisis or having difficulties and trying to figure and navigate some of the processes that are out there. So that's just a little bit of what we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. And a couple of things. One is the resource guide you were referring to. There will be a link to that along with the follow-up email that Annalise was mentioning that has a link to the survey. So that'll be sent out tomorrow. And it's really impressive how much coordination with all the different agencies that you had just spoken about. I know this county does a great job at that with many veteran and non-veteran initiatives, but thanks for sharing that. Chris, last but not least, can you tell us about how your particular department, the suicide prevention unit at the VA, helps veterans in the community? And by the way, I know you're based in Lee, but you also serve Collier County veterans as well, correct?
Yeah, thank you, Mark. I appreciate being invited to today's event and for you organizing it. And I'm very impressed by my fellow panelists. I'm sorry, my something's gotten in the way here. Do want to give kind of an overview to put my program into context, which is that, yes, I'm located at the Cape Coral VA, actually teleworking now. But connected to that facility as part of the Bay Pines VA healthcare system, which covers a large swath of territory, all the way from a clinic up in Palm Harbor, which is north of the medical center in St. Pete, all the way down to Naples. And you guys have the honor of being the clinic which is furthest south in the system. And I will say that I worked at the Naples clinic as a clinical social worker for a couple of years before I moved into suicide prevention. So I've always felt like a real strong connection to the Naples veteran community. So yes, PTSD wise, the VA obviously provides a lot of services in relation to that. To me, PTSD is the number one condition that the VA is concerned about. You know, it's kind of in its own way unique to the veteran population. So mental health services are available throughout the system. we have a large mental health clinic at the Lee County facility, and there is also mental health staff at the Naples facility as well. And this includes psychiatrists who can prescribe medication, and psychologists and clinical social workers who provide psychotherapy. My role in suicide prevention, a little background on our program, is that, and of course it's widely in the news these days about veteran suicide and the rate of it and things that are being done to try and address it. And really, the VA suicide prevention mission started in 2009 as a sort of community outreach program to reach out to individuals and families and organizations to educate everyone about the issue of suicide, to have that conversation, because there's still a certain amount of stigma associated with it, and people are inclined to not only keep those thoughts to themselves when we would like to talk to them about it, but also when things happen to suffer the bereavement process in silence. And so just trying to keep that conversation open. And also we started as a sort of internal training for VA staff as well. So, but of course, like everything, we've grown immensely over time. And we started with two suicide prevention coordinators / case managers and a program support person, for a total of 3 back in 2009. We're now at 11 staff people. And in addition to the outreach component of the program as it started out, probably the best known aspect of our program is the Veterans Crisis Line, which again, I'd like to give a plug for. It's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week hotline, and it was actually rebranded some years ago to, from a suicide hotline to a Veterans Crisis Line, which I think is much more appropriate, because you can call that phone number with any concern that you have. It doesn't have to be only related to if you're feeling suicidal or not. So handling calls that come into our national Veterans Crisis Line centers, there's now 3 of them, one in upstate New York in Canandaigua, and another in Atlanta, and another in Topeka, Kansas. And they send referrals to us for veterans who called those national hotlines from Florida. And then they live in our area. So we follow up with them the next day. And I think that's typical of what we do. We're really case managers. We don't provide therapy, but we provide the linkages to whatever services the veteran needs, whether it's inside the VA, a mental health referral, or outside in the community. So our primary role is case management. And the other, I think, main aspect of our program is identifying veterans who are at risk, so that we can provide them with additional monitoring and additional services. And to do that, we have a system of what's called a high-risk flag for suicide. So if a veteran's mental health provider, psychiatrist, psychologist, social worker, feels like they need additional support, they'll ask for this temporary flag, which lasts for 90 days. And then we assign one of our team to work with that veteran and have telephone contacts with them to see how they're doing, and to find out if they have any concerns. So we really are kind of a linkage. And then once the veteran is feeling better and they no longer need the flag, we take it off. So it's this constant process of, putting flags on, reviewing them, taking them off, making sure that veterans who need help are getting the services that they need. So one other program I wanted to mention in addition, so we have like 250 high-risk flags now that we're monitoring. And probably about half of those, I did a tally recently, are veterans who have PTSD as a diagnosis or listed on their problem list in their medical record. So there is a connection between PTSD, we know this, and the need for additional support. So even though suicide prevention isn't particularly focused on PTSD alone, I feel like that is a big part of our mission. And most of us on the team have mental health backgrounds in dealing with those issues, so that when we're speaking with veterans, we can be sensitive to that, and also kind of, providing with the proper kind of referrals that they need. So that's one way that we identify veterans who are at risk. The other way is a program that's called Reach Vet, which I think it's important for people to know about. That's a fancy acronym for Recovery, Engagement, and Coordination for Health is the Reach part, and Veterans Enhanced Treatment is the Vet part, Reach Vet. And it's interesting because there's two ways to identify when somebody needs additional help. It's either their clinical provider meets with them, does an assessment, and arrives at their conclusions, whether they're low or intermediate or high risk. And that's how we end up placing the high-risk flags. The other way, which is more recent, is through the use of what's called an algorithm, which is kind of like a mathematical formula where they take, look at all of the veterans' charts according to certain variables, like if they have a mental health diagnosis, if they've been in the hospital recently. And then what happens is you apply the algorithm and a list comes out of the veterans who are at highest risk. And we get a list of those veterans every month. And then we reach out to them. And there's usually about 100 veterans on that list every month. So, and it's interesting because you would think, oh, this is so impersonal, but it's actually been found to be just as effective at identifying veterans at risk, if not more so, than the clinical assessments that are done by providers. So I think between these two programs, the flagging program and the Reach Vet program, the VA is really working hard to protect its most vulnerable veterans. So I think I will just leave it at that so that we have time for discussion.
Thanks, Chris. And yes, we're officially now at the Q&A section. If you have a question, you can type a general question into the Q&A box. If you have a question for a particular panelist, just please mention that in your question as well. In the meantime, I have a question. Leslie alluded to it earlier as far as gaps in the system with all the different organizations. And I know we have 4 here and there's others that provide services for veterans with PTSD. Where do you see gaps? And this is a question for any of our panelists in getting help for veterans.
I'll go ahead and answer part of that, and maybe that'll get us all started. Probably the thing that we see the most at the sheriff's office, because like I say, unfortunately, when we intersect with our veterans that are in crisis, for whatever reason that is, many of them are homeless. And just like all of our counties all over the nation, many of us are facing gaps with housing. And being able to get them to treatment as well. Housing is a given. We, like I say, we've got Wounded Warriors of Collier County who's trying to fill part of that gap, but we've got over 28,000 veterans that are in Collier County, and a small percentage of those are are having issues and problems. So we do have a housing problem that's out there. Some of the services that we have out there, the services that we have are wonderful, but when we talk to a lot of the veterans that are in crisis out there at the time, they are having problems strictly just getting to their regular treatment for medical, mental health, all of that. And there seems to be a little bit of gap here in Collier County with that. It's getting better as we grow, but I would say that's probably some of the gaps. And I know my colleagues that are on here probably have some other opinions on that too.
Yeah, I like to echo what Lieutenant Weidenhammer said about getting to appointments. It's definitely one of the bigger gaps transportation wise. You know, as I mentioned, currently our mental health facility is in Lee County, so it is harder for those who need help in Collier County to make it up there. One of the other things I wanted to point out as a gap is just payment for mental health care. A lot of veterans either don't have insurance because they go through the VA, or they may have TRICARE, and a lot of the mental health providers down here in Southwest Florida actually don't take TRICARE, which is super unfortunate because of a huge population. That's all they have. So you're forced to pay cash for these mental health appointments if they so choose not to go to the VA for some reason. And so that's another big gap. You know, they may not be able to pay for that, and so they just think that nobody is there to help them in that situation. So that's one of the gaps that we've found out.
Anyone else before we move on to the next question? Okay, and the next question is, where does substance abuse fit into what you do? Do you handle it directly, or do you refer to someone such as David Lawrence?
We deal with ours kind of more, it's a mix. It depends on how severe the situation is. We do have a psychiatrist on staff who can help with med management as for substance use. However, if it is more severe, we are currently referring out just because we don't have a inpatient treatment or a really robust outpatient substance abuse program.
Anyone else?
I can speak on what we do. We do at the vet center, we can do an initial screening for substance abuse issues. It's very common to see substance abuse issues hand in hand with PTSD because of the issue of self-medicating and trying to numb the symptoms that they may be experiencing. So it's not unusual that we see that, but we could do an initial assessment. And then depending on what the level of needs are, we would refer to the same resources that Chris can refer to because we're all part of the VA. So within the VA, there's also different levels of care for substance abuse that are available to the veterans. Outpatient substance abuse, there's an intensive outpatient program for substance abuse, and then there's a residential program. So there's different levels of care depending on what's going on with the veteran.
Okay, and anyone else on that question? Okay, and I have a question about other organizations that have resources, such as the PAWS program. Is there anyone who's familiar with the various organizations that help veterans that would like to share some of that information? I know that was something David was going to provide. Joy, are you familiar with some of the organizations that are out there?
Yeah, there's actually quite a few organizations that provide additional types of support to our veterans. So whether it's PAWS, which offers therapy dogs for the veterans, or Freedom Waters, which provides some outings on the water in a safe environment for veterans and family members. There's lots of different resources like that. And then there's other programs that come up periodically. And with Dave being our outreach person, he really keeps his thumb on the pulse of the community about what's going on. So if there's ever a specific need or question about opportunities for veterans to engage in the community, or they're just looking for different types of support, Dave's always a great person to reach out to, and he can certainly help put people in touch with the right resources.
And I know Dave's, except for last night, Dave's usually at the Collier County Veteran Council meetings, which meet every Wednesday evening, every third Wednesday. They were doing it at City Hall, and then for a short time through Zoom, and then last night they returned back to having their meetings at City Hall in person. And they'll have several speakers. For example, somebody from Freedom Waters would come and talk about what they do, and the Therapeutic Riding Center, the Equestrian Therapeutic Riding Center, and pause in some of the other resources. So I would also like to ask, without this becoming political, we want to keep it informational. I had a question on what are some of the things that people should be listening to or learning about prior to the election as it relates to candidates and their positions on veteran-related issues. Does anybody have anything that they would recommend as an important factor for something that would be important for veterans and those who take care of veterans? Okay. And
Mark, I'll just say a brief statement that's not political at all. I believe that all of us that are on here, that we need not forget our veterans and make sure that benefits and everything are being provided to them, and take our opportunities to be vocal about that, speaking to our commissioners, our senators, all of our public officials, to make sure they're not forgetting about those folks, especially during this time where we've got a whole lot of other things going on.
Thanks. That's a great point. You mentioned Dale Mullen earlier, and I was on a meeting with him not long ago, just a few days ago, and he had mentioned that at one point, not long ago, the Collier County commissioners did not acknowledge the fact that you had homeless veterans, even homelessness to a certain extent, but you had the Hunger and Homeless Coalition that were doing counts, but they didn't show that they had homeless veterans. And Dale and a group, and part of the Sheriff's Department too, were involved in going out and doing an unofficial count and found about 48 veterans. And then they coordinated with the Hunger and Homeless Coalition and found through their point of count, the official point of whatever they call that count, that there were at least 30 or more. It was, something that we knew was happening. But the point is there was a grassroots effort to focus on a situation and really bring that up with the local government. And now they're fully aware. And, you have the Alpha House now and some other programs that are being established to help housing.
That is correct. One of the things, and Dale, I know he's on here as a participant, but he was very strong in getting a group together, and not only have they done one veterans homeless count, they've done two, and I'm sure we've got another one that's ready to go when the count takes place again next year. With that, with the county commissioners, Dale and his group were very important in making sure that the mental health strategic plan that has been approved this year by the Board of County Commissioners also includes our veterans as a special interest on that. So yes, it's being talked about. Things are being done, and like I say, Dale and his group and Alpha House, they've been very important in making sure that things take place. And that's what I say, it's very important for us to not forget our voices and speak to our commissioners, speak to our city council members, and let them know how important this is. Say we've got over 28,000 veterans as of 2017 that we know live in our community. And we do know now, we knew all along, but we officially can say that we know that we have veterans out there who are struggling, post-traumatic stress, and are in crisis and need assistance and are homeless and are thinking of suicide, thinking of hurting themselves, and struggling with various different things. So remember, we always have a voice.
Thank you, Leslie. And I have another question, which is there any connection between your programs and the health providers, such as the hospitals for veterans who are Baker acted into a facility?
Repeat that again, if you could, Mark.
Yes. Is there any connection between your programs and the health providers, such as the hospitals or veterans who are Baker acted into a facility?
I'd like to answer that real quickly, and also say that for some reason my computer is going to restart in 2 minutes and I have no control over that. So I apologize if somehow I just exit the meeting. But at the VA, we're actually notified every time that a veteran gets admitted to a local hospital, like down here in Southwest Florida, which happens often because of how far the medical center is from us. And there is a phone number for people to call so that they can tell the VA. If the hospital staff doesn't do it, the veteran or their family can do it, that they're in there and that they need the VA to cover this admission for them. And so those admissions are tracked. As long as the VA is going to pay for it, those admissions are sort of tracked by a team of nurses who get notes from the hospital, and then they notify the providers, the VA providers, about the status. And when they're discharged from the hospital, we arrange for a follow-up appointment. So yes, we do have a relationship with local facilities in that regard. VA does.
Great, thank you, Chris. And if you get cut out, thank you for participating.
Sorry.
Today, really appreciate it.
Just to answer this question from Homebase's point of view, we don't have any formal connections with the hospitals other than Lee Health. However, we have had several different social workers from a couple of different hospitals reach out in regards with referring a veteran to our program. If someone is Baker acted, they would have to actually reach out to us, reach out to Homebase in order to go into our outpatient clinical program.
Great. And I did have a final question. I know we're coming close to 1 o'clock, and I put my phone number next to my name just in case anybody wants to write that down and contact anyone specifically. I can share the contact information of the panelists. But is there any other way, other than the resource guide, which I know will have some of the information in there, is there any particular way, anything that they Google or find you or information about your programs that you'd like to share?
Would there, just a quick question, would there actually be any way if we were to share our flyers with you and our cards, our e-cards with you, that you would be able to send those out to those on the webinar today?
Yes, I believe we get a report that shows everybody that was on. So yeah, that would be an option. Yes.
Okay, perfect. I can forward all of our programmatic flyers and then my contact information as well. So that way we'll be able to get those to you guys.
And does anyone have any other closing comments, Joy or Leslie?
And for the vet centers, certainly you can Google the vet centers and it'll pull up the VA website with specific contact information for each particular vet center. And then Mark, of course, feel free to share our contact information when you send out the follow-up email as well.
Great. And Leslie, any final comment for today?
Thank you for having me. Thank you, everyone on here. If anybody needs to contact me, Mark has that information. It's not too hard to get a hold of me. If you call the sheriff's office and you need to speak to the mental health bureau, and just tell them you need to speak to Leslie. And/or you can also go on our website, and we have a section there that lists contact information for our mental health bureau.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to thank the panelists today for participating and sharing all the information about this very important topic, and also Annalise for her leadership with our veteran outreach at Avow, and everyone for joining the seminar today. Really appreciate it. And again, I have my number here, 239-285-9300. If you have any questions, let me know. And you will receive not only a follow-up email with a link to the survey, as well as a link to the Veteran Resource Guide, but then we'll do another specific follow-up email with some of the programs and contact information of the panelists. So thank you very much for joining us today.